Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Dakbo Adegboye and here are stories making the rounds beyond the continent. Well, let's start off the news at this time in the United States, where defense lawyers of former President of the United States, Donald Trump, on Tuesday rested their case at his criminal trial on charges stemming from hush money paid to a porn star without calling the former U.S. president as a witness. Taking the stand would have given Trump the chance to defend himself against the 34 criminal counts he faces from alleged falsifying business records. Prosecutors say he sought to cover up his former lawyer Michael Cohen $113,000 payment to adult films actress that's Stormy Daniels for silence before the 2016 elections about a sexual encounter she says she and Trump had in 2006. Well, joining me on the news to discuss this is foreign affairs analyst Abimbola Awuyele. Abimbola, thank you for joining me. Now, let's talk about your reaction to the defense decision not to have Trump testify.
Well, I think they've weighed the pros and cons. Usually, when they are prepping a witness, whether it be the defense itself, they usually go through the questions, they run through every scenario, everything that the defense lawyer will ask the witness on the stand. They go through all the responses and then they go through what could be potential questions that the prosecution will ask. And after weighing it, I'm guessing that they would have figured out that this might not be a good idea to put Trump on the stand, especially because Mr. Trump has been involved in a couple of gaffes over the years. Most recently, him calling, not being sure who is who. Well, during one of his campaigns, he was trying to refer to Nancy Pelosi, and then he kept on calling, referring to her as Nikki Haley. He went on and on, and kept saying Nikki Haley. So it's possible that they were trying to avoid Mr. Trump misspeaking or saying anything that might, be ammunition to the prosecution. With him, having a history of gaffes and over speaking, even when he's not asked for additional information, he tends to give too much information. And maybe during their pre-trial prep, they just figured out it wouldn't be a good idea. Let's just leave it as it is.
All right, now, what impact, if any at all, do you believe this trial will have on the upcoming polls?
Well, the US election is usually decided by the independents. The Democrats are locked in to their candidate. The Republicans are also locked into their candidate. We've seen more Republicans, in recent time with all the polls that have been taken, saying that they will not vote for Trump, as opposed to more Democrats saying that they will not vote for Biden. So Mr. Trump is already missing out there on some of his loyal supporters who were with him last year, saying that they're not going to go with him, that their preferred candidate is actually Nikki Haley, who dropped out about 2 months ago and is still getting votes in primaries to going on, even though Trump is already the substantial ticket and flag bearer for the Republican Party. And for the independents, right now, a lot of them are more concerned about what's going on with the economy as opposed to what's going on, with this hush money trial. And if you go by some of the polls right now, it actually shows that Mr. Trump is leading Biden, the incumbent, which kind of suggests that, Americans are looking for an alternative. Traditionally, they Americans always like something new. They always, want something fresh. And we've already seen this movie before. 4 years ago, it was these two same guys. One came and ousted the other, and now one is coming back to take his place. So it does suggest that Mr. Trump is getting some sympathy votes, while on the other hand, There are reports, there are stories, there are interviews, on the campaign trail with former Trump supporters saying that they are not so inclined as to support Trump a second time, because of some of his rhetorics and some of the things that he did. A lot of them are holding on to that January 6th insurrection. But it's still anybody's to take. If Trump can win back the Nikki Haley supporters, which he has said he doesn't need, but everyone is saying he needs them. And also, Biden needs to tout a little bit more some of his past achievements, some of his current achievements that he has made, because he's gotten the economy back on stride. He did the infrastructure bill. He worked on the bipartisan border deal and a lot. So Trump has to get his crew back together. Biden has to tout his efforts a little bit more.
Now, let's talk about the potential implication of this particular trial for other political figures facing legal challenges. What do you think this will do to them?
Well, the U.S. Justice Department has always been with questions. There have been quite a number of cases brought against people who we, have seen that have been deemed to be politically motivated. The Republicans are saying this is politically motivated, but this is the DOJ. This is the FBI bringing these cases. They are not beholden to anyone. In fact, a special counsel who is a little bit right-leaning was brought into for some of these cases. Was it just this weekend that Rudy Giuliani was served for a case in Nevada? So all of these are coming up. They will be tainted as being politically motivated, but I think majority of Americans still believe in the justice system, and we'll just let that system play out, without colorations from the media.
All right. Now, also, how might the trial's proceedings and outcomes influence the public's trust in the U.S. legal system?
Yeah, so the U.S. system, that justice system, like I mentioned earlier, has come under scrutiny over the years. To certain people, the justice means different things to them. If you ask the Black community in the United States, they will, they would have something different to say when it comes to the legal system and how it might tilt a little bit towards a certain demographic that is fairer in skin color. We talk about white privilege and and all of that, and the statistics are there with regards to how the justice system can favor quite a number of people. It was a couple of days ago, or was it a couple of weeks ago, there was this report that came out about judges ruling in certain ways or ruling against the defendant if they haven't had a meal in 4 to 6 hours. So there are quite a number of things that actually decide how a ruling is made, which that one was a little bit, out of left field. But I think overall, the justice system for the United States is still a bit balanced and is still a little bit reliable, especially if the charges are coming from our federal charges from the FBI, from the DOJ, and from all those other federal parastatals. Usually when it has to do with municipalities and states, they can be a little bit biased. I just have to say that because that's how I see it. It's my opinion. But they can be a little bit biased if there are, state cases. But usually when it has to do with the federal government, the DOJ, I think it's still a little bit, there is still a higher level of confidence there from Americans.
All right, Abimbola, thank you so much for your insights on the news.
You're very welcome.
All right, now staying in North America, in the violence-ridden mountains of western Mexico, a remote indigenous community has been trained to serve as poll workers in the country's upcoming general election of June 2nd. Ballot boxes, electoral agents, training sessions in the middle of the mountains less than 2 weeks before the presidential elections in Mexico. Rehearsals take place even in the most remote indigenous communities, where voting is a feat. Now, the training took place last Saturday at the Huixabrica community, one of the most representative ancestral towns in Mexico for its culture.
Pues es un poco difícil por la zona, más que nada. A veces pues no llegan tanto los materiales como esta vez no pudimos hacer prácticas, faltaron algunos equipos y entonces es donde se dificultó nada más. Pero
el INE tiene el objetivo principal de acercar cada casilla a las localidades más alejadas y a las localidades incluso de los centros urbanos, con el objetivo de que el día de la elección tengan claridad sobre lo que deben hacer para que podamos contar los votos adecuadamente.
Let's head to South America, where Peru's Ministry of Health has reported that at least one person has died and 22 others were injured after a deflagration at a gas station in Lima. According to the police, the incident may have been caused by the explosion of a gas tanker.
Bueno, después de la explosión que ha afectado aproximadamente 2 cuadras a la redonda, tenemos una cuenta de un fallecido y aproximadamente 40 heridos.
Es en el mismo tanque, es un camión abastecedor de combustible de GNB que tienen 4 balones de cisterna. 2 de ellos han salido por la explosión, han salido impactando las viviendas continuas. Y una de ellos todavía sigue emitiendo gas, y por eso que todavía lo ponemos.
Todas mis puertas, toda mi cochera, mi vehículo, todo está destrozado. Mi casa se ha caído, pues toda la pared se ha caído.
In Europe, Prince Harry's bid to include claims against media mogul Rupert Murdoch and broadcaster Piers Morgan has been rejected by London's High Court. Harry, along with more than 40 other plaintiffs, is suing Murdoch's UK newspaper business News Group newspapers over claims of phone hacking and unlawful news gathering. The plaintiffs had applied to amend the lawsuit to include new claims against Murdoch and Morgan, who worked for the now-defunct NGN newspaper News of the World in the mid-1990s, claiming Murdoch's knew about unlawful activity at his newspaper as far back as 2004. Now, UK Paymaster General and Minister for the Cabinet Office, John Glynn, announced on Tuesday that victims of a decade-long tainted blood scandal, which has killed about 3,000 persons in Britain, will begin collecting final compensation payments this year. More than 30,000 persons, including children, were infected with viruses such as HIV and hepatitis after being given tainted blood between the 1970s and early 1990s. Glynn said victims would receive interim payments of £210,000 within 90 days before the final scheme becomes operational.
I recognise that members of the infected blood community are still dying each week from their infections. And there may be people, indeed there will be people listening today, who are thinking to themselves that they may not live to receive compensation. So I want to address those concerns too. Today, I'm announcing that the government will be making further interim payments ahead of the establishment of the full scheme. Payments of £210,000 will be made to living infected beneficiaries, those registered with existing infected blood support schemes, as well as those who register with a support scheme before the final scheme becomes operational. I know that time is of the essence, which is why I'm also pleased to say that they will be delivered within 90 days, starting in the summer, so that they can reach those who need it so urgently most.
Let's go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. The first trial in France on the crimes of Bashar al-Assad's regime opened Tuesday before the Paris Assize Court. 3 senior Syrian officials suspected of having played a role in the deaths of 2 Franco-Syrians are tried until Friday in absentia, notably for complicity in crimes against humanity. Absent from the hearing, Ali Malouk, a former head of the National Security Bureau and the highest intelligence body in Syria, Jamil Hassan, former director of the much-feared intelligence services of the Air Force, and Abdul Salam Mahmoud, a former director of the investigation branch of these services, are also accused of complicity in war crimes. They are subject to international arrest warrants.
Très satisfait, très heureux que ce procès puisse avoir lieu. Nous espérons également que ce ne sera pas le seul, mais c'est encore une fois d'abord et avant tout pour la famille d'Abag un aboutissement très important et très attendu. Et puis c'est aussi un immense espoir pour l'ensemble des victimes syriennes qui ne peuvent obtenir justice. On sait que l'impunité continue de régner de manière absolue en Syrie. C'est donc un procès pour crime contre l'humanité qui bien sûr vise à rendre justice à la famille d'Abag, mais qui au-delà de cette histoire va pouvoir aussi faire résonner ces récits de centaines de milliers de victimes syriennes.
Let's also tell you that in Asia, 1 person has been killed and several others injured on a Singapore Airlines flight from London that was hit by severe turbulence. The Singapore-born Boeing 777-300ER was diverted to Bangkok and landed at 3:45 p.m. local time. In a statement, the airline officials said flight SQ321 was carrying a total of 211 passengers and 18 crew members. Singapore Airlines says it was working with Thai authorities to provide medical assistance to passengers and was sending a team to Bangkok to provide any additional help needed.
ครับวันนี้ประมาณบ่าย 3:45 ทางสุวรรณภูมิได้รับรายงานว่าสิงคโปร์แอร์ไลน์เที่ยวบินที่ SQ321 จะขอ Emergency Landing นะครับว่าตกสภาพประสบปัญหาตกหลุมอากาศมีผู้บาดเจ็บหลังจากนั้นเนี่ยเมื่อเครื่องลงเรียบร้อยแล้วเนี่ยก็ทีมแพทย์ก็เข้าไป investigate ในพื้นที่ก็ภาพว่ามีผู้บาดเจ็บจำนวนมากก็เลยทำให้ต้องประกาศแผนฉุกเฉินของสนามบินนะครับหลังจากนั้นเราก็ทุกทีมก็เข้าช่วยเหลือก็ได้ทราบว่ามีผู้เสียชีวิตด้วย1 รายนะครับไม่เกิดขึ้นบ่อยเลยนะครับสำหรับเครื่องที่ตกหลุมอากาศแล้วมีผู้เสียชีวิตต้องเรียกว่าเป็นเหตุการณ์แรกของสนามบินสุวรรณภูมิเลยสำหรับการตกหลุมอากาศแล้วมีผู้บาดเจ็บและเสียชีวิตนะครับ
Earlier, our international correspondent, Fia Hagen, joined us on the news to discuss this.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is furious that he has been equated in some way to the leaders of Hamas and therefore has been accused of war crimes. He said that it was a moral outrage of historic proportions, and he said Israel was waging.
Of course, still on the news at this time, thousands of Iranians have worked soberly through the streets on Tuesday for the funeral procession of President Ibrahim Raisi and 7 members of his entourage who were killed in a helicopter crash. Waving Iranian flags and portraits of the late president, the mourners set off from a central square in the northwestern city of Tabriz, where Raisi was headed when the helicopter crashed on Sunday. Let's also tell you that Indian authorities in the capital have ordered schools shut early for the summer holiday after temperatures hit 47.4 degrees Celsius, with Delhi gripped by a severe heat wave. According to a government order, Delhi city officials asked schools to shut with immediate effect due to the boisterous heat cutting short the term by a few days. Indian Weather Bureau has warned of severe heat wave conditions this week, with the mercury level reaching the sizzling peak of 47.4 degrees Celsius in Delhi's Natfaja sub-region on Monday, the hottest temperature countrywide. Authorities in other states, including Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, and Rajasthan, have also ordered schools closed.
मैं यहाँ पे सिकंजी बेचने आती हूँ। यहाँ पे इतनी गर्मी होती है, इतनी गर्मी जब हवा चलती है तो ऐसा लगता है जैसे कि हमारे चेहरे पे कोई रैपट मार रहा है। मुँह इतनी पसीने में सारे तरातर हो जाते हैं। बहुत ज़्यादा गर्मी है। हमें गर्मी का सामना करके अपने घर का खर्चा चलाते हैं। आप बताइए और कितनी गर्मी पड़ेगी, पता नहीं क्या हाल होगा।
गर्मी के वजह से गरीब को कमाना, खाना, धूप में रहना, अपना धंधा करना बहुत दिक्कत पड़ रही है। बहुत ज्यादा दिक्कत है कि जो कि आदमी काम करते हुए भी काम नहीं कर पा रहा है। इतनी दिक्कत है कि कोई है ही नहीं कि तो क्या करा जाए। लेकिन सीजन है, आता है जाता है, ये तो लगा रहता है, सब कुछ नहीं है। लेकिन एक ही दिक्कत गर्मी है, काफी गर्मी बहुत ज्यादा है और इस साल कुछ ज्यादा ही दिखाई दे रहा है। दिल्ली के अंदर चांदनी चौक इलाका में पानी की व्यवस्था है ही नहीं। सारी सरकारें आई और कितनी सरकारें आई और कितनी सरकार चली गई, लेकिन पानी की व्यवस्था जनता के लिए सेवा कोई भी नहीं।
The trial of ringleaders of the far-right Reichsburg terror network, accused of planning to topple the government, began in Frankfurt on Tuesday. Heinrich XIII, Prince Rus, is accused of being a suspected ringleader and is on trial before the higher regional court, along with 8 other men and women. The Federal Prosecutor's Office accuses the defendants of being members of a terrorist group or having supported it. Among them are ex-soldiers and a former lawmaker of the far-right party Alternative for Germany. And that's a wrap on the news at this time. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live across these platforms: DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Apple TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Dakbo Adigboyi. Bye for now.